So hey guys, before I get into this video is going to be separate from the documents themselves. And so right, there's going to be a separate upload for the documents since the documents don't have the victims' names in them. But with the DMs I had with the victim, and of course the victim that has been contacting me directly, I basically gonna censor the name just for privacy reasons, and also so that Josh, Snake, and LURKI-14 cannot just go up to them and start harassing them with, of course, their terrible fan base as well. So there's a fact that everyone is in fact saying, so let's see if I get into it. So straight off the bat, right, it starts off with people saying, right, that they thank me for making the video on it, to thank me to basically support the victims, to basically help them to spread the message, and of course, spread about the disgusting behavior that they've been doing on the internet against victims. And just get out of the way, they said this too, because if you don't know, but Lurky account ain't ran by her anymore, which is a massive revelation. Which makes it so right that now LURKI-14 has no contact with Josh or Snake, making it so right that technically they have basically broken up. And you may be going like, was it ran by anymore? Since of course if LURKI-14's out, what is her account ran by? It's ran by Josh and Snake. Basically, now she basically doesn't even do cosplay or talks to Josh anymore. He basically does content with another girl, Nichima. And it seems like based off Nichima's own Instagram page that she seems to be not only being in contact with Josh, Snake, but also by LURKI-14 themselves. Making it so that she is potentially another victim in this. And makes it so that technically LURKI-14 could still be partnered up with Josh and Snake, but it seems to be like that they're still not in contact anymore, which is absolutely insane. And this is probably coming from the victims themselves, which is something that's absolutely shocking. I do not know if she knows about this, but I think she probably does, which is absolutely insane. And so I'm going to reach out to this victim and, of course, going to get an update based on her as well. Please do not harass her, but however, she may be another victim within this. And pretty much what's happening is that basically Lurky and Josh had a thing, because they were kind of feels even they were dating, they kind of had a thing going on, which could have influenced LURKI-14 to basically commit these horrible crimes. This is not me, but that I'm saying that LURKI-14 is a victim, because LURKI-14 is equally responsible, if not much more responsible in the crimes compared to Josh's Snake, because Josh's Snake would commit the physical abuse and of course sexual abuse, but however LURKI-14 would manipulate these victims and prepare these victims for Josh and Snake, which is equally unacceptable, and just shows right that all you need is simply one woman in order to simply mass manipulate a bunch of victims to basically be manipulated and sexually groomed by the men over here. And it seems to be right that she does not even give a fuck about it. Even after the breakup, she does not give a fuck about it, and she seems to be finding it funny and hilarious. Making sure that she is very guilty of this, and making sure that she doesn't give a fuck about any of this. And she thinks that this is hilarious and acceptable. She thinks this is legal. She thinks that sexual harassment, sexual grooming underage minors is acceptable, which is something that me and many other people across the cosplay community do not accept, by the way. Even if I don't do cosplay myself because I'm in motorsports, I was in fact in the Evangelion community, and quite ironically, LURKI-14 was in fact heavily involved within the Evangelion community to be cosplaying as Oscar, but even Oscar wouldn't be going down this deep, this low, in order to basically sexually groom and sexually assault minors. And I thought right initially that she would basically, after this breakup, that she would in fact improve herself, basically make her life a lot more better. Basically, DC just kind of forgetting her past, despite the fact right, that past, that thing right, is permanently scarred into her. It cannot be removed, it cannot be scraped away. And so right, as I thought, she may improve herself. No, she found this funny, and on top of this, her ego is too big to get over herself, which is simply the root problem of this. LURKI-14's ego is so big to the point that she doesn't want to admit that she's at fault. Instead, what she wants to basically ghost everyone online, probably delete her social media or abandon it and just leave it to Josh and Snake, which are the two worst people, by the way, because it's pretty much skinwalking her and just making as much money off of her cosplaying off of her content for it period doesn't make that much money. They just want to make some extra cash on her. We're also trying to sexually groom and assault more minors, which is absolutely insane. What YouTube, by the way, is also supporting on top of this by accepting some really redundant and really terrible privacy complaints, which I have evidence to later inside of the video. And when the documents were released, you know what was LURKI-14 was doing? She was dancing on a pool table after the document was released. Absolutely insanity right here. The documents, when the documents were released, LURKI-14 was doing bungra and literally dancing on the pool table, which is 100% unacceptable and kind of shows that her initial response to the documents leaking and releasing shows right that LURKI-14 is very guilty in this because she has no remorse whatsoever, and in fact she is probably complying in more sexual grooming. And then we go like, why is this not told to the police? Which, by the way, we're also going to get to later inside of the video. But we also know that, right, that she doesn't really care about Josh. She's totally like this to make money, which is also weird. Because of that, I seem to have a suspicion, right, that LURKI-14 and Josh are still really friends and still maybe in contact with each other, but really secretly, but also may have some sort of potential contract, which also found out in the later side of the video, which I'm going to tell you, which could be fabricated. But there's something going on, something fishy that's going on between LURKI-14 and Josh to basically allow to convince LURKI-14 to allow Josh to use her likeness in order to make some extra cash on her. Despite the fact that LURKI-14 and Josh does not seem to be in contact anymore, according to the victim. And of course, in return, right, Josh and Snake would basically do the classical thing, right, of threatening their parents, threatening their family members, not in terms of holding them hostage, but mostly just to gather all their evidence into a simple doc file, into a simple .zip file, to basically send over to their parents to go like, look what your child is doing, hoping to God it brings up enough guilt and shame within them to potentially allow the victims to pretty much commit suicide. Literal suicide, by the way, which is not acceptable, by the way, but Josh and Snake are so fucking cold, including LURKI-14, that they would much rather have their victims to pretty much commit suicide, which is probably, like, in their mind, the best. Why? Because if the victims kill themselves, this story ain't gonna spread. It's just simply gonna be buried on with the amount of other victims that also been buried and been trampled on by LURKI-14, Josh, and Snake. And I even offered myself to basically help out the victim, to basically report this to law enforcement, to basically make sure that these people can be reported to justice, which the response will be happening next inside the video. But however, here's another fun fact. The channel, LURKI-14, has been named to per key. It literally be named to per key, CIO, or whatever's in the title is basically their new channel's name, to be honest. So, pretty much because of this, right, it shows right that they try to rename the channel so they can get themselves inside of a new light. But in reality, that ain't gonna change shit. Why? Because my most recent video, or basically my video based on the LURKI-14 situation, is still up, and it seems to be right that, like it's going to be mentioned in the later side of the video, that it seems to be right that is affecting many other small creators as well, which also may also include YouTube corruption and also YouTube's own AI moderation being so terrible to the point where it looks as if that YouTube's defending predators and of course rapists and everyone who basically commits sexual crime against men and women. But speaking about the contract, right? The victim said that she probably could still be making money if the contract was involved. But however, the contracts that were made by LURKI-14's management were 100% bullshit and was not legally binding anyways. Making so that technically the contracts was more or less just a piece of paper just saying like, yeah, but we're just going to do this and that, and we're going to pretend that it's legally binding, but in reality it's not. We haven't really consulted a lawyer for this, which, first of all, if you want to form any contract, first of all, you need to basically go to a lawyer. Because a lawyer, solicitor, both of them will basically sort out contracts, legal contracts, making sure that it could be legally binding for both the victim and, of course, for the sexual predators over here, which could be Josh and Snake, making sure that they follow all current laws. Even though it may sound as though kind of siding with them, it feels as if that if they want to make it legally binding, which they kind of want to do, they could have solicited a solicitor or a lawyer, but they didn't. Probably because the lawyers and solicitors are not going to get involved directly within this, because it could expose their whole operations and jeopardize their whole operations. And of course, you're going to what blackmail is collected based on the victim, the nudes and such, and of course the proof of the victim's racism. So they were going to send the victim's nudes, racism, which of course we could suspect that the victim could be underage, making somewhere that technically the victim is not mean by the victim. The predator is only CSAM content, which could be child pornography, which could relate into jail time. But however, the American justice system is very terrible, to the point that I believe that the statute of limitations should not apply to sexual predators or sexual harassment or anything to do with sexual exploitation as a whole. I believe that for them, they should never have a statute of limitation. And it seems to be that even worse, LURKI-14 seems to be sharing the victim's own contents and stuff towards other people as well. As the victim has also got other victims to come to her, who also basically formed together in order to make this document, by the way. Basically, that LURKI also shared this stuff with other people. Like someone that redistributing CSAM content, child pornography, and of course, the holding of child pornography and CSAM content is really detrimental and could be guilty and could in fact lead to the jail time of LURKI-14 and their whole gang. Because at the end of the day, right, what you'll want is jail time for LURKI-14 or PERKI-14. The jail time for Josh and Snake as well. And it seems to me that the contracts and of course the legally binding service is so fake that I have no idea that it says the fakest cease and desist to one of the victim's friends, who are also blackmailed in order to do so, which is absolutely ridiculous. Which also suggests that YouTube is also being sent fake privacy notices, which of course is because of its AI. They'll also be taken down and such, making so that YouTube's own system are being actively abused. But instead of admitting a fault, YouTube, they decide just to carry on, believing that, oh right, it seems to be the correct thing, despite the fact that they're on the side of sexual predators, rapists, and of course many other people, which makes it that I am against YouTube now. I do not support YouTube and their current decision. Many of the small creators are also coming out not supporting their stances, not supporting the AI moderation. It has been going on for a while, and I believe that this could hurt YouTube inside of the long term. And of course, the victim could have told the police, but it seems to me that they're not really the brightest, and so they were easily manipulated, which makes it even worse, as especially for a vulnerable cosplayer like them, they can be easily manipulated and easily controlled in order to simply, I don't know, to simply not be telling the police or their parents, which makes it sound worse, as they're simply exploiting and abusing a vulnerable victim, which of course is a prime target for predators and sexual predators, and of course rapists, and of course those sorts of people. But also on top of this, he also submits false privacy complaints. But basically, it seems to me like there's a pattern within this, where they basically claim to be, Josh Snake, whoever does it, basically claim to be, well, a victim who does not want their info to be shared, which is quite ironic because they're not the victims. In fact, right, they are probably the victims of their own stupidity of having low morals or no morals whatsoever in order to simply commit these horrific crimes which have no excuses whatsoever. That's probably what the victims are, of their own terribleness and their own criminal mastermind of forming up a grooming gang, which they don't want to have their info shared, which of course YouTube AI is siding with them automatically, and of course this was easy debunkable, but of course YouTube does not want to do that. Instead, YouTube wants to be on the side of sexual predators, rapists, and all those sorts of people, and now wants to in fact have all the videos that came from the victims, including myself, to be taken down, to basically wipe the slate key of sexual predators. Don't you worry, EDP is gonna come back, because EDP can just simply submit a bunch of privacy complaints and a bunch of other videos, and YouTube can just simply accept it. And not to disrespect, and what else? I think many other sexual predators can do it. I think Gideon could also have his whole videos and the whole channel deleted because a bunch of these sexual predators could just simply submit false privacy complaints towards YouTube about Gideon's videos and it could just simply be taken down. Well done, YouTube. You just simply defended sexual predators. And basically, we both agree on this and say that that's the worst part. So there has to be a way to get in contact with YouTube staff, which now seems to be bloody impossible because the only way to contact them is via their Twitter page, and their Twitter page is controlled by AI bots, not proven by Deep Humor or Dark Humor, I think, but also proven by many other people as well, including me now. And they're gonna ANOVA. A lot of people have their videos taken down for different reasons lately, making so that try to in fact cover up their paths by basically submitting different types of visas, different types of stuff, and making so that technically they try to in fact cover up their tracks, making so that they don't really lead to them. But thanks towards the victim, you basically gotta prove that it all links to them in one way or another. And we both agree that we're gonna make a video and we're gonna also upload it onto different platforms like Patreon and also those platforms, making sure that if the video is not to get taken down on YouTube because breaking news, AI. Oh, shareholders, thank you for the money. I'll just keep on shouting AI and I continue to make more money. AI, invest in me, AI. Sorry, I was basically getting more money for the stocks of YouTube. I had to get more money, so I had to get more money for the channel because we know that way. So you just shout AI and AI, all the shareholders come over to you and invest billions into you for some fucking reason. Yeah, we're just not gonna upload. We're gonna upload to YouTube. We're gonna upload to other platforms because they have YouTube has AI moderation, could be easily tricked and easily bypassed in order to simply. Well, to simply, take down the victims' videos and, of course, support sexual predators and, of course, rapists. And you may be going like, why is nothing done? Because statute limitations, because this was done in 2024 and 2025. And so basically, Josh and Snake are not completely off the radar, but however, they can be done for fraud and tax evasion shit, not sexual blackmail, which is kind of ridiculous and it's absolutely insane. So this is supposed to get some short jail time or a lot of fines being dependent on it. But hope to God that the new government of America, which of course after Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump gets out of office, hope to God that they will in fact make new laws to make sure that the statute of limitations of sexual misconduct gets removed and so that more victims can come out and make their reports. And this is having a massive effect on the victims, as of course they're tired about this, and of course very scared about this, as of course they're scared to post and talk online, and therefore of course affects the mutuals as well. And that's of course everything I want to talk about based on the victim's point of view. And we all agree that they need to be locked up. They do not need to be fined, they need to be locked up because their crimes stay with them forever. And Josh, and if you're listening to this, there's no content, there's no privacy complaints, you cannot take on this video. Why? There's nothing being shared based off of you. There's no anything whatsoever. So try and trick the AI moderation for me so I can prove how much of a dirty bastard they are so that I can make a video based on them also. So that's about everything. Josh and Snake, I got you the task of helping me to basically support my claims of showing that YouTube's AI moderation is 100% abusable. And yeah, that's in fact everything I want to talk about. Stay safe.